Hello and welcome back to VGC. I'm Jordan Medler and today I'm joined by the big boss Andy Robinson. How are you doing?
I'm very good, mate. How are you?
I am well. Today we're talking about Ghostwire Tokyo because you got a chance to see a bit of the game recently. This has been a game that not a whole lot has been said about, not a whole lot has been shown. I believe this was the first time they were showing off gameplay. So what did you get to see and what were your kind of initial impressions of the game?
Yeah, it seems like Bethesda are sort of blasting it all out quite quickly. I mean, they've announced just this week that the game's coming out in March, which is probably far sooner than we expected. I mean, it's basically, a little over a month away from release. So we got the first proper look at gameplay, really, in a pandemic style preview event, which these days kind of happens over live stream. We got to see some gameplay and hear from some of the game's development team kind of talk about what the game's about, because you're right, so far we've kind of seen some moody trailers that kind of paint the kind of the world and the scene for the game, but we not have known a hell of a lot about exactly how it plays, and it looks cool. It looked really cool. So the game, you play as a young man called Akito. Basically, he's kind of woken up in Tokyo, and suddenly everyone's kind of vanished, and there's the kind of headless, demons patrolling the streets, and it's not really clear what's happened. Like, people have literally disappeared, their clothes are left on the floor, and now it's all become quite surreal and spooky. So playing as Akito, you've kind of found yourself fused with another character called KK, who's apparently he's an experienced ghost hunter who's become a spirit. So you're kind of infused. It's a bit like The Darkness, if you remember that game.
Yeah.
It feels like that you're infused with this kind of supernatural character, and kind of like the characters kind of talk to each other as the game progresses, and you can use like his abilities and things like that. So the two of them are kind of exploring Tokyo to find out exactly what's happened and track down a mysterious villain called Hannya, who's the character in the footage with the mask, and also to save Akito's family, who've apparently been swiped.
So it seems like it's obviously Tango Gameworks previously did The Evil Within. They've got a lot of kind of horror pedigree. Is that generally the vibe that you're getting from the footage and from what you saw? Because from the footage you're looking at now, it's a first-person game, but it's kind of using different powers. And how did you get a sense of all that kind of stuff?
So the combat was a little bit difficult to kind of track how kind of satisfying that's going to be from footage, to be honest. Obviously, you're using these supernatural powers and kind of shooting projectiles, but also it seems this is combined with a kind of mechanic where you have to grab the cores of these kind of spirit baddies, and basically you hold, once you've kind of weakened them a little bit, you hold down L2 and then you kind of like rip their core out in a kind of quite slow, kind of flashy set piece.
Yeah,
it's a bit difficult to tell how that really kind of how satisfying that is from footage, obviously, but I imagine with the dual sense it probably is quite a cool mechanic. There was another kind of more traditional weapon that we saw. You could use a bow and arrow, but that looks obviously less interesting. It's just kind of like your generic like kind of pot shotting baddies from afar. Also, it seems that you can block and deflect enemy projectiles as well. But by far the most interesting thing for me was kind of the exploration side. It's such a unique setting with kind of like these genuinely kind of unsettling creatures, kind of spooky demons everywhere. These kind of Japanese salarymen. The demons with umbrellas and schoolgirls with no heads, and there's definitely some cool character designs in this. Tokyo, a game world that we got to see, it felt really believable. I mean, I've been to Tokyo many times, and it felt like a real place. Is the kind of best compliment I can give it, and I mean that in terms of just how rich it felt with interiors, and you can even like zap up to the rooftops. There's lots of kind of recognizable landmarks, and not in a theme parky way, right? Yeah. And it doesn't even feel like, even though it's very clearly gated, the progression, from the footage I saw, it didn't feel like you were being rooted in one particular direction. So basically there's this fog that surrounds the game world, is some sort of spooky fog, I will call it. But I'm guessing it's my interpretation was that it's part of the reason, why everything's gone to shit.
Yeah.
You have to kind of vanquish it, and you do that by finding these torii gates, which are the big iconic Japanese kind of gate structures, and then like kind of solving a quest there in order to vanquish some of the fog, and then you can explore further. It's the pacing and the variety seem to be another strength. This is a Shinji Mikami game.
Yeah.
Who, for any listeners who don't know, he's the creator of Resident Evil 4. This is a real master game designer, and I don't think anyone. I remember when Resident Evil 4 came out, no one saw that game coming, how excellent it was, because it seemed quite unremarkable on the surface. It's only when you got your hands on it that you realise that game's fantastic, because it's honed down to the absolute perfection, every mechanic, and the pacing and the variety. And there were hints of that in this. There was a lot of different activities that the player was kind of going into. You go into interiors and kind of complete his actual missions, and it seems to be a lot more structured than just kind of exploring, Tokyo. There'd be, kind of scenes where it felt almost detective-like, and there'd be others where you're kind of searching an apartment block to find this kind of spirity source that was kind of raising these kind of ghostly barriers.
Did you get kind of a sense of how big the kind of openish areas you're exploring are? Are we talking like a Yakuza kind of sized area you're walking around?
No, I couldn't really tell. They told us it was early in the game and it was only a small chunk of it. So it's difficult to tell just how big it is. I'd say it was more, just how dense it felt. As I said, you can zap up to the rooftops and kind of even see the city from high up, and the interiors were really detailed and they felt like kind of really believable and lived in. There was also, on the other hand, there was there's some suggestion that it might be a little bit box checky, the open world. Like, there's a big map in the footage we saw with like kind of lots of stuff to check off. But to be honest, like, I can't wait to explore this setting. Like, it felt so unique. It's got another all-time Shinji Mikami shopkeeper in it as well. There's I think they're called yokai, which are these like legendary Japanese animals, like cats and tanuki and stuff, that you kind of meet, and they'll like sell you stuff and kind of help give you new abilities. And I
think there's some of that in the footage. Are those the wee animals that are
you go into like a combini, with like a corner shop convenience store, and there's just like a flying cat behind there who sells you stuff.
So it's not taking itself, it's not hyper serious, it's not incredibly
none of Shinji Mikami's games are. No, it's definitely not taking itself too seriously. And the other thing is that narratively, it also feels like genuinely interesting, quite unique as well. Obviously, everyone's disappeared from the city, and they've been replaced by these kind of ghouls and spirits, and it's not really clear why. And there's constant kind of chatter with KK, this character who you're inhabiting, which is another kind of mystery of who this character is inside of you. But the most crucial thing is that a lot of the residents of Tokyo are also still present as ghosts, as spirits. Like, you'll see them going about doing their day-to-day activity, and you can kind of use this special like kind of detective vision style mechanic to track them, kind of follow them around. They'll lead you to stuff, and some of them you can even talk to and help out and get quests and stuff, and to help return them to the mortal world. Like, there's one scene that we saw, it was an elderly lady who was missing her granddaughter, and that kind of led you into a kind of mini mission with lots of kind of environmental storytelling, where you kind of found out what happened to her, and you'd purge this evil spectre by kind of drawing lines on the screen. Like in a pendant style. And then that would kind of, free this spirit to kind of return to the mortal world outside of Tokyo, which is what I gathered. And I think you kind of, the more enemies you defeat and you collect their cores, that's also another mechanic in itself, because you exchange these for kind of, you exchange them in these fancy phone boxes for XP and money, and you can then upgrade your equipment and abilities. So there is a lot going on there under the surface. The setting looks really unique. I'm genuinely really intrigued to kind of explore and see how deep this goes, narratively and mechanically. I think that, as I said, there was a suggestion that it could perhaps get a little bit repetitive down the line. Like, that's the concern. But to be honest, that's my concern with every preview I do with an open world game.
Yeah.
You know, these guys working on this game have got pedigree. It's as open world games go, this is definitely one of the more unique ones that I've seen in a long time, and I'm looking forward to playing it more.
It definitely sounds interesting. I was a bit concerned when it comes out in about 60 days, and this is really the first kind of deep look we're getting at it, and it feels like more of a preview you would get for a game that's 6 months away, especially because you didn't get a chance to like put hands on it or anything like that. But did you get the impression that it's ready to go, and it seems like
it looked great.
Yeah,
it looked great. I mean, obviously there's always they can do as much smoke and mirrors as they want in a preview session, so ultimately we won't know until we get our hands on it. But to me, there's a couple of factors behind that. Obviously with a pandemic, but also this being a Japanese game, the Japanese games we've seen have been uniquely affected by the pandemic, because they're just not, for whatever reason, as seemingly as suited to working remotely as what Western teams are. So there's probably an element of that, you know, just being certain that it was going to come out and it would be done. But also, if you look at Bethesda's track record, they don't have a long PR cycle. They never had for their games. I mean, I remember they announced one of the Fallout games at E3 and then released it like 3 months later.
Yeah,
that is kind of what that's what they've always done.
Yeah, it's another Microsoft presents a PlayStation console exclusive, much in the same way that the Deathloop was. Will this suffer the same Deathloop fate where it got amazing reviews and then sold like absolute toilet?
I hope not. Probably.
Yeah. Well, there's a full written preview on the site that you can check out on VGC, and it won't be long until there'll be a review on the site, because I mean 2 months from now it's got to be coming in.
I know. I mean, I'd be hoping for us to be playing that in the next kind of couple of weeks.
Well, we'll certainly see. But for even more, you can check out VGC and be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel for more great content. See you later.